Alright guys, last video. Here we go. If you remember a few videos back, we talked about the functions of the skeletal system: structure, protection, movement, calcium storage, and hematopoiesis. Let's talk about that movement piece for a minute. With the exception of the hyoid bone, that's this little bone that's found in your throat, just below the base of your tongue, every body in the bone is connected to another bone. There's a gap between those bones, and that's called a joint. Joints are classified by how much movement they allow between the two bones. Synarthrosis, or synarthrotic joints, are joints that allow no movement. So they're like the joints between your frontal bone and your parietal bone in the skull, those sutures that hold the bones together. A joint that allows some movement is called an amphiarthrotic joint, or amphiarthrosis. For example, the two coxal bones in your pelvis, where they join. And finally, a diarthrotic joint, or diarthrosis, allows free movement between two bones, like in your knee or your elbow. Most joints are going to fall into this last category, so let's do a deep dive inside one and see how they work. So inside a diarthrotic joint, you have two layers of articular cartilage, one over each bone. The cartilage is covered by a fine membrane called the synovial membrane, and inside that membrane are bursae, which secrete synovial fluid, and that acts like a lubricant. So the two membranes can slide over each other without causing too much friction. Things like an infection can cause bursitis, which cause the bursa to swell up, or immune response can cause swelling in the articular cartilage, and that causes arthritis. So two pieces of articular cartilage wrapped up in a lubricating synovial membrane. And all that is inside this joint capsule, which is made up of ligaments and a few small vessels. I mentioned this before, but this is why joint injuries take so long to heal. Small vessels mean small blood flow, which means slow healing. So we have synarthrosis, amphiarthrosis, and diarthrosis, joints that don't move, move a little, or allow free movement. The diarthrosis type of joints can also be categorized by how they allow the joints to move. For example, the elbow will be considered a hinge joint, as it allows the humerus and the ulna to bend at 90 degrees, but only in one direction. The joint in your shoulder, that allows your humerus to move around that clavicle and scapula, allows 360-degree movement, and that's called a ball and socket joint. Take a minute to review this slide and make sure you're familiar with each example of each joint.